I want to thank everybody for your very interesting and insightful comments in your exit tickets. It was very clear that the presentation by Sarah had a lot of impact on people. It made you think about the issue. It made you think about how to kind of tackle intricate things with students. And I'm glad we were able to share all that. And I thought your observations were very, very good. I also want to reassure a few of you who panic when you realize that you're late with your exit ticket, that that's not keeping us up at night. So don't let it keep you up at night. I think it's a really convenient and effective form of communication between us so that we can see what you're taking away from each session. We can make sure that you're not having any big issues or problems. But if you get delayed, the due dates for those were kind of arbitrarily assigned because you have to put one in Google Classroom, but we're not neurotic about that. And your course experience is pass fail. So in the end, if we have some reactions from you to every session, we see that you're making progress on your template, and ultimately you complete the template before you expect graduate credit to be awarded, it's all going to be okay. So just don't don't get stressed out, because that is not why we're having this experience. Anybody have any questions or comments to carry over from our last time together? We want to make sure today that you have a good amount of time to work in small group, get feedback from your colleagues, share how your plans are coming along. And we're going to do something at the front end before we put you into breakout rooms, and then we'll pull you back together and we'll do some closure and an additional video at the end. The video that we want to share with you to begin the session today was just released by Edutopia last week. I attended a terrific webinar, and we will put the link for the webinar in your Google Classroom so that any of you that want to take an hour sometime to listen to it can certainly do that. But they were very excited to be sharing some new research about the benefits of project-based learning, particularly on academics. And they really, they worked with Stanford University and Michigan State. And if I can say this was something good coming from Michigan State, you will know it's terrific, because I don't, as a Wolverine, like to make those acknowledgments. But the purpose of the studies, and actually there were 4 different projects, some elementary and some secondary, but they actually set up experimental groups and control groups, and they were comparable classes, exactly the same socioeconomic and ethnic makeup in the classes that they were comparing. It's a very large study, actually. And in the groups that got the PBL experience, the teachers really were handed a curriculum that had been developed by a team of teachers. So they were not doing exactly what you all are doing in terms of creating your own based on your local needs and interests. But what was happening was that some kids got the PBL experience as prescribed in the study. The others did not. And they had common testing using standardized tests from their states at the end of the school year. And the PBL kids consistently outperformed the other kids, as you will see. So they were not teaching to the test in the same way as was happening in the traditional classroom. It's very interesting results. So we wanted you to see it. There are 4 such videos. The one that we chose for today is the one that was elementary level, since a lot of you are elementary. But Irene, for you, particularly at the high school level, one of the other videos actually was comparing AP classes. with a group of AP classes that were using PBL and a group of AP classes that were not. And I think it was AP Environmental Science, but it was all very interesting and impressive to us. So we want you to take a look at this. One thing that I want you to notice, you'll see they'll quickly flash a picture of the 4 different PBL projects that the elementary kids were doing. And 3 out of the 4 of them are of a service learning nature, in that they were going to learn something that would be of value and shared with others. The first one was just an interesting investigation called "Why Do We Have So Many Squirrels and So Few Dinosaurs?" So it was an inquiry study that was not particularly service learning, though they could have turned it into one if they had wanted to. But it's a 5-minute summary of this particular study, and we'll see what you think after you take a look.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you some fossils to actually look at, real fossils, and you can use the evidence to support what you're going to tell me about the fossils. All right? Some of the things.
Our goal was to design, develop, and test materials to see, does project-based learning really promote student learning?
All right.
Kids, unfortunately, are introduced to science like it's a body of knowledge.
Use your evidence to support your idea.
But science is so much more than that. Science is all about trying to figure out how things work. In many respects, project-based learning mirrors what scientists do, right? Trying to answer a really important question or to figure out what's going on with some phenomena.
When I let go, I started to go slower and slower, so then it stopped.
Multiple literacies and project-based learning is very different from traditional science classrooms. I was a science teacher for about 30 years in Detroit Public Schools. We did cookbook experiments that usually were just validating whatever we talked about in class. When you go into a multiple literacies and project-based learning science class, you see something very different. You see kids that are engaged in asking questions and trying to solve problems. We developed 4 units for the 3rd grade that cover a full year of curriculum that are integrated with mathematics and English language arts. They are really investigating things. They are really making observations, asking questions. They're developing models. They're arguing with each other about the science.
We integrated literacy where it was really important to support children in the learning of science.
So we saw just in the classroom kids getting excited about reading because they were excited about the topic, because it was something that was related to what they were trying to figure out. The standards in math that we chose to integrate were the ones that were so much a part of what we do in science. They're actually measuring for a purpose in order to gather data. So that they could really analyze that data in order to figure something out.
Can you see that one?
You can't see like a paragraph.
My role in this was to help with the design of the research. Part of the group would get the project-based learning, and the other group would study science just as they traditionally do. We had to make sure that our sample was balanced with respect to their achievement, their population characteristics, and school enrollment size. We looked at 46 schools, 23 in the treatment and 23 in the control group. At the end of the year, we gave all the students an objective science test that was developed by the Michigan Department of Education. We found that, in fact, there was a significant treatment effect for the students that were in the treatment group. This was true regardless of what your gender was. It was true regardless of what your race and ethnicity was. And it was true whether you were a struggling reader, an average reader, or a very good reader.
We actually move them up in their proficiencies in learning science. And so that is really strong evidence for using project-based learning in schools because it is different. But do the kids get excited about learning science? Do they put effort into learning science? And so we also measured kids' social emotional learning.
So for teachers who are just starting out, just changing your instruction to say, we're trying to answer this question today, so that it gives purpose to what the kids are learning. That power of, I can figure things out for myself, is such an important skill for kids to develop that they will be using for the rest of their lives.
Did it make a difference when I changed the straw?
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you some fossils to.
Let's get a couple reactions. What'd you think about that? Do not be shy.
I think I'm going to show that in my stats class. Thank you. I mean,
That's
that's
right.
perfect. I love how because that was my first question when you were talking. The first thing that came to my mind was, well, I wonder who they did it on, and was it comparable? You know, I just was curious how they did it, and I think that made it really valid. I liked hearing that.
Yeah. And make no mistake, we're not expecting you or Tallmadge to do a complete overhaul of curriculum and go 100% in this direction. But the number one question that gets asked by skeptics about going to a more experiential form of learning is, but will they really learn? You know, yes, they'll have fun, but will the intellectual stimulation be adequate and sound? And this is a great answer, and so are the other studies, I promise you. Other reactions?
I love that driving questions board.
Uh-huh.
I want to make like a digital one or a in-person one with our group in the fall.
Yeah, and a really interesting point about that is, you know, we've been laboring as a group, all of us, trying to craft the driving questions as the adults. But the reason that you model this in the first place is to get kids used to being the ones that ask the questions. And then you can always help to refine the format if you need to. But it's about questions as the basis for learning for the kids, and a lot of them their own questions.
And when you start with a question, it leads to curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
And so it changes the passive learner. You know, in the traditional group, I would believe that you would find more students who were passive learners in that situation versus in PBL, in service learning, as a part of PBL, they're active learners. They become curious. They're, you know, you're not giving them what the answer is all the time. And one of the things when I watched that, and Rena, I was thinking about like how good it would be for staff to see this video too, that when Ken Robinson, I think maybe we mentioned this last week, he said, you know, when you change your instruction within the classroom, you change the kids' educational experience. And when more people do it, it's a movement. And when everybody's doing it, it's a revolution. And so when we've done this work for a long time, we never had that kind of research that you just saw, where people intentionally took control groups and could, in a genuine way, and can really show the difference between the two. And, you know, if I'm not saying you have time to do this, but for schools that really want to change, transform their learning, those are the kinds of things that when we start to analyze what really works, Because if it works in your classroom, then it can work in the classroom next to you, in the classroom on the other side as well.
But I'm glad somebody else did the research, so we don't have to withhold the treatment from everybody in order to prove a point.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to tell the Tallmadge parents who are in the control group why their kids aren't getting the best stuff.
Other than you would have parents that say, "Oh no, I want my kid in the classroom where the teacher's just giving them everything."
Well, other comments before we arrange your groups?
It made me think of, too, seeing those kids involved and how she had said, giving the kids a purpose and pulling even those kids that are non-readers. I have a student this year who isn't talking to us. He's not saying anything. He motions, he can talk. He's choosing not to talk. He has some things going on in his personal life. But when we did our force and motion activities and experiments, and we combined that with measurement, and we were measuring and throwing airplanes. Everybody made paper airplanes and we're throwing them, and we did line plots, and we were trying to move the paper across the room without touching it. He was one of the most involved students by just writing and drawing things and, oh, look at my, not saying anything, but just, hey, I got an idea here. He was so involved. And because he wanted to do that hands-on stuff. He wanted to be immersed in it. He does not participate a whole lot when it's sitting up here talking to me. You're just yakking at me.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't see the purpose.
Yeah.
So I love that.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And John, I think you had something you were going to say, didn't you?
Yeah, if you don't mind. It just it gets back to giving up control. Because it's hard for me, because I'm like, all right, let's do this. I don't care about messes. I don't care. And my wonderful partner, I love her to death, but she's OCD. No. Let's organize these into little baskets. We've got A, B, C, D, E, F, and to me, my brain doesn't work that way, because I'm like, no, let's just do it. We'll clean up the mess,
John, that's why Mary Kay and I were great partners in 3rd grade.
Oh, okay. Was that it? Okay. Oh, I love my Mary Kay. But, a lot of times, it's all about control and like doing these things. And for me, sometimes just let it rip. Let the kids, we provide the framework, but the kids do the work, so I don't mind cleaning up messes. So.
Well, and we have to work sometimes with teachers like you're describing to look at what it is they are still in control of. It's not chaos. It's supervised inquiry. And you are still in control. You just have to learn to control different variables with a little bit more relaxed style.
Well, and it could be that
you're laughing at me, Sarah.
Sorry. Sarah's sitting here saying, amen.
And the question to kids could be, how would you organize this? If you had these materials and these tasks, how would you organize it versus no structure? And it's, we do the same thing. I mean, we're so quick to do all the work.
Yeah.
And if we can just get that across, is how can you frame it so kids are doing the work? Sarah?
Oh, the one who does the most work does the most learning. That's what I always tell the kids.
Yeah.
And then also, John, there was the project with the tiny houses, and they used their what would have been our guided reading group daily 5 time or math center time to embed all of that in. So there were those structured experiences for the learning that they needed to do so that they could do the project. So I was kind of think about that.
That's a wonderful point, Sarah. And it is the teacher still is in control, but but the control is different than I'm going to tell you everything you need to know.
Mhm.
I'm going to tell you how you can learn everything you need to know. And I don't think it was explicit in that video, but among the things that they analyzed, the data that they analyzed, I would have loved to have seen the behavior, like what behavior issues did the more traditional class have versus the PBL, because those kids were everywhere on the floor doing things. And yet they looked, at least in the video, of being totally engaged, just like Debbie, you talked about that student.
Yeah.
You know, if he's not engaged like that, he might be poking somebody in the back or.
Exactly, he is. He sits and scribbles all over the tabletop or rips paper and is throwing paper at the person next to him, and that's exactly what he's doing.
When you think about the time in class that is used to maintain order and behavior, and if you don't have to do that, how much more instructional time, how much more time kids to have to learn is significant.
I love that she said something in the video. She said the kids were arguing with each other about topics. And I was like, I love that she used those words, because we often talk about when we're in, am I good? Can you hear me? Okay. We often talk about, like, when we're discussing something, it's a discussion. But when they have a problem on the playground, oh, you're arguing. No, it's all the same thing. You just have to learn how to do it effectively. So if you're doing it in that way, you're learning how to solve those problems and do that effectively in other places too. And I love that she said that.
One of the other videos, all 4 of the videos that they produced occur at the end of the 1-hour webinar, and then they're also making them available individually. But in one of the other studies that they showed, they also noted changes in social emotional learning, cooperation, empathy, and so forth. So that's addressed in one of the other ones as well.
So I think, clearly you guys find these videos interesting. And so if you want to look at them, you can. But also, if you need some additional hours to log, that would be a productive way to do it versus.
Yeah, what you're going to receive from us, Kathy can decide whether it works to put it in Google Classroom or to send it to you as an email. But after I attended the webinar, I got a follow-up email from Edutopia that included the links to everything. And that's the thing I think you should have, because it's got the research briefs if you want those. There's a link for that. There's a link for
I'll put it in Google Classroom.
Edutopia's favorite videos and so forth. So I'm glad you're our first audience to see this, because it's brand new. So I'm glad it was helpful to you. Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just, oh, sorry, John, go ahead.
Oh, you go, Irene. I talk too much.
Me too.
We're Italian. No,
We're going to have a self-love thing here. None of you talks too much. You're enthusiastic, you are lovable and capable, and you're all right.
And on Zoom, we're so glad.
Hey, tell that to my first grade teacher who told my parents I talk too much. I still haven't forgotten. Hey, so this whole time through this whole class, I've been trying to figure out how I'm gonna, approach this PBL and service learning and whatnot. And I kept thinking, well, let me just teach the basics, and then I can finally give this project in class. And I finally did. And now I'm kicking myself for wasting all that time teaching the basics, because all I'm doing is running around my classroom like a mad woman, reminding them what those basics are, and it's actually pretty frustrating. And as soon as I give them a task to, for example, as easy as it would be to classify data as quantitative or qualitative, something that they've probably had to do from the time they were younger. They can tell you what it is, and they can classify data 100%. That it's actually really easy for them to do. But when I turn it around on them, and instead of giving them a test over this material, I'm asking them, I want to know what their focus is for qualitative data and for quantitative. And then I'm asking them to do certain things with the data. And And, just getting them to get their focus on the qualitative and the quantitative. Some of them are asking questions that would result in, qualitative data when I'm asking for quantitative. And so we just have a little conversation about it, and I help them tweak their questioning and like that light bulb of like, oh, so as soon as they have to think about it themselves to ask the question, to collect the data, it's like now they get it. And even though they could answer those questions and get 100% on any test that asks them that, I didn't realize they didn't get it until I did this, and I was like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? You're like 17 years old. How are you not getting this yet?
that is the point of what we do.
No,
here.
and I saw that so much today. You talk about engagement with these little kids. My high schoolers today, I couldn't believe how many of them were asking me questions and talking to each other about what they wanted to find out, what they were going to survey about. I did get a phone call from the middle school principal telling me I'm not allowed to send surveys to the middle school kids, though, by the way. So, so I apparently there's some hoops I have to jump through. I did encourage my kids, you elementary teachers, to let me go through you guys, but they definitely seem like they're just trying to do the easiest thing possible, which was just send the surveys out to their class, not their classmates, but their fellow classmates, like the 9th through 12th graders. Anyway, I think
Connor is in 9th grade, and he told me yesterday, we were waiting in the car for a few minutes. He was like, Mom, I keep getting these statistic type questions in my email. And I was like, oh, I know who's doing that. I know whose fault that is.
I know. I told my kids, I'm like, please make sure you're answering those questions, because these people need the data. Like, just answer the questions.
That's what I told him. I said, buddy, do it. It only takes you a minute. Be nice.
Yeah. I know.
Sending it.
As we go forward and you've got projects needs like this, these are some things that we can take to the administrators and Shelley and say, this is why we're doing it. And so, maybe there's some great legal reason that they
honestly, I just think because when it's a surprise, they don't know where it's coming from and why. And then, of course, a lot of them, especially 6th graders, are like, wait, what's this? Do I have to do this? And, so I'm sure I could go about it a little bit differently. I think that would be better.
Well, it's all a learning process, but I still, that point that you made is because we can go K through 12. And if the kids are learning the content for the test, we go, okay, that box is checked. We're okay. But if they can't apply it to a new situation, they didn't learn it. And so I could come through the screen and hug you right now.
John, did you have a question or a comment before we go to small groups?
Just one thing going back to, I'm just thinking too with the video this year because of the COVID, that PBL has been dramatically changed. Because I know with Mary Kay in the back of her head, all right, is that a safe activity? That's also going through our heads too, which we dramatically change how we approach things. So, but hopefully this is only short term and it's all going to be better.
There are things that you can do through technology and looking at them creatively. I mean, in the same way that we've had to figure out how do you do the best days activity online? We're going to do that with Friday. How do you do kid figures online? How do you do the heartbreak map? And there are ways, but you have to figure it out given the limitations. We understand. We need to know, in order to put you in groups, if some of you have preferred colleagues you want to work with. So if you have requests, let Kathy know, if you would.
Yeah, because this.
We need
you and I.
Sarah and I, of course.
Okay.
Can I jump in with them? Because I want to pick their brain about something.
Okay,
so Sarah, Irene,
and
Debbie.
Is that right? Sarah, Irene, and Debbie? Okay.
Do we need
John?
Do we need John and Julie in ours, or?
It's up to you guys.
Just can't hear you, John.
John's saying he'll go anywhere. You put him with anybody, he'll be fine.
I don't have to do this today. I can always send them an email. No big deal.
It's all right. I've got you in there. So give me the names. Who's next? Just
I'd like to join that group.
who's
Bounce
up?
second grade stuff
Julie.
off.
Julie. Mhm.
And who else?
Julie,
will.
John, Irene, me, and Sarah.
Oh, okay. So I'm going to move.
So there's 5 of you in that group?
Yeah.
Okay. Are the rest of you feeling all right about yourselves? That's a lot of people to be picked with you not picked yet. Oh my goodness. Do it.
Okay.
We love you all. It's nothing against any of you.
Matt.
Matt Hagedorn and I need to be together, but we need like some other people in there too, because we need to hear some other ideas.
Okay.
Well, I'll just put the other 3 that are left in that room. That's 5. So you'll have time. Okay.
And I can pop in and out. I can leave and then, yeah, I'll talk
John will talk to everybody.
Yeah.
anyone's ear off. You know me.
Okay, now.
I will talk to
And he will
everybody.
have great ideas for everybody as well.
We're going to release you for almost 35 minutes. You'll get a warning a minute ahead, but if you know you can re-enter, you can ask to come back if you need to ask us a question along the way. Anybody? Okay, so don't get stuck. If you need us, we're
Or
here,
put it in chat. If you have something, just put it in chat.
and we'll join yours.
Okay.
Everybody ready?
Here we go.
Oh, one thing. You don't need to build your discussion around this, but you already know from last week, and the talking points are repeated on this week's agenda. You know the things that we want you to put on your slides to give your 3-minute presentations to each other next week. So if you're stuck on any of those items, make sure you get feedback. Got it? All right.
Okay. See you in 35 minutes. Welcome back.
Don't ever say that to me again. And you're right.
Did you not do well in breakouts?
All except John. He's such a troublemaker.
John was going to stop into all of ours. I thought he was going to show up. He never came.
Well, he started talking in ours.
Now there's a surprise. So let's have a little feedback about your discussions. Are you helping each other, or do you wish you'd never been with those people?
Well, they helped they helped me. They pretty much gave me my idea. It was Sarah's idea. That's why I had to meet with her, make sure I could steal it. So I did. I mentioned it, and we talked about some of the difficulties of what I was thinking would be a great service learning project. How like the logistics of it will be hard, but
Okay.
I have some framework in mind. So.
Irene, I don't know whether we mentioned this last week, but in our conversation with Shelley, you can stop me if we did. We had a meeting with Shelley after the class where you were talking about, oh gosh, if I could team teach with somebody else in a different subject area, and we brought it up, and she said, well, why couldn't they? So
more likely second semester than first semester, but
Wait. Why couldn't they? Because she doesn't know why it can't happen, or she thinks it can happen.
It
could happen.
That if you were interested in, now I think she was going to talk with Jen, and we may have to remind her, but if you were interested in doing like a block class with another teacher.
Yeah, definitely.
Or schedule, she said, because the schedule is pretty much built right now, first semester would be hard to do, but second semester, they could build it that way. And either you could have a 2-hour together or 2-period together with all the kids, or schedule a group of kids with you one and that teacher the second.
Same kids.
Same kids.
Yeah.
I think that I would be shocked if we can do that, but only because the kids would have to sign up for both. But yeah, I mean, if they would want to do that, if we could come up with a class that, you know, where they weren't choosing to take stats and like actually my like honestly like just newspaper, like journalism. There's so much of stats in journalism, and in a way, like, it actually drives me crazy reading some of the articles because it's great the information they collect, but they get answers from like 13 people, and nobody what those results don't mean a whole lot, you know, and just kind of like the way my students went about just surveying whoever. I think we could have a much better information about our population at our school if we did it, you know, in a more valid way. So that would be really cool if I could with like the journalism.
Psychology, Irene, any psych course, pair up
Yeah.
psych course, because that's all we do in psychology is statistics.
Yeah.
So we don't want to.
That's a good idea.
We don't want to push it if it's not something that you want to do, and we can't promise that she didn't feel like sure that would work, and then there'd be a roadblock. But if you're interested in it, we would revisit that with her, and I think she would, if you wanted, I think she would provide some, whatever your curriculum development pay is, to work on it in the summer with somebody.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
So we'll make sure that we connect with the right, you know, to make sure that this is a thing, but it starts with you if it's something you're
I'm definitely interested. Yes, I'm definitely interested. I think statistics can be so interesting, but truthfully, I've been bored teaching it the way I've been teaching it. So I, you know, I just think to give it some of the, you know, some real life application, and then for them to be able to get 2 credits out of it, I think would be great.
if you think of it as a pilot, then maybe it could expand to other disciplines, you know, with other teachers.
Let me generalize this so that it might affect some of the rest of you. She talked about offering some course opportunities this summer, but they might be working groups. So it would not be necessarily us instructing as much as people getting together to collaborate, to put together project ideas. And it's something that, of course, you can get CEU or graduate credit for, but in the case of anybody that was actually trying to develop curriculum, then the curriculum payment would apply. So, you know, we might have some things that are just learning experiences, but if they are learning and curriculum development, then there would be potentially money attached. Let's go back to what came out of your groups before. Comment a little bit on what the experience was like, and also let us know if it brought up questions that we need to address before the end of today's session.
Can I add one more thing too, Irene? When you co-teach or team have a partner, oh my gosh, it is better for the kids because it's like, did you see little Susie? What was up with her today? That you have I absolutely love team teaching with my partner because it's like sometimes when a kid's driving you nuts, I go, Mary Kay, I can't deal with this kid. And she will swing in, swoop in, help this so that I do not, you know, do harm to this child. But I absolutely love working with someone who can bounce ideas off of me. And I know my other elementary people, you know what we're talking about here.
Sometimes it's good to tell your teaching partner to go take a walk and take a break too.
Yeah. Oh, I will grab this child. You go refill your coffee. Come here. Yeah.
As your consultants, we would affirm that it is better to bounce ideas than children. Yes.
Sorry.
Okay, who else?
Let's go this way. give us a thumbs up if you feel like your plan is coming along in a reasonable way. Okay, now, if you just experienced this, oh my God, I better put my thumb up, but I'm not really feeling great. Okay, if that's where you are, then we hope you will email us after the session and set up a time that we can Zoom with you between now and next week to make sure that you feel on track and you're feeling comfortable with things. Okay, if you're moving along on your own and you're doing just fine, that is terrific. And you feel like you've got some things that you can say to address each of those talking points next week. Wonderful. Those of you that are working together only need to prepare one set of slides for us, but you should divide up the talking a bit so that we hear from everybody. But we only need one presentation for each project that's coming together. What else you got for us in terms of either questions or comments? Yes, sir.
Something too with having our Irene, who's new to what we were talking about in other sessions, it was kind of nice because it's like everyone kind of summarized what they're working on. And as you summarize this, you find out, oh, okay, you know what? I'm going to change that a little bit. As you're verbalizing, it's really helpful to like, oh, wait a minute, maybe I will change that. And then that led on to a discussion with our group.
Yeah, and that's a big part of why we make sure that you do that on a regular basis. Anybody else? All right, we're going to close today with, this is a piece of student work, and I'll give you the backstory. We work with a team of 2 teachers in Pickerington that have a class of kids. It is an actual service learning class, and they go into depth studying a number of important issues. They started with mental health. Now they're on to racial equity and anti-discrimination sorts of things. But they take on important stuff as a group and think about ways to raise awareness and take action. But also they have a service learning piece built into the course where they are doing tutoring with elementary kids. And of course, they used to do it in person. Now they're doing it online. But it really is a wonderful opportunity. Well, we have met with them a couple of times, especially to coach them on how to get into these difficult topics. So we brainstorm ideas for entry events for mental health and then for the racism study. But after their kids did an in-depth investigation on mental health issues and used some materials from Nationwide Children's Hospitals on Our Sleeves program, the project for that unit of study was for the kids to work in teams of 2 to develop PSAs to raise awareness about mental health and call attention to useful resources in the community. And this is one of the PSAs from their kids. So a team of 2 high school students produced this.
And so I think, Irene, what you were talking about before about kids can memorize the content, they can learn the content, but then being able to apply it. This is such a great example. And Sarah with a psychology class where they took content and applied it to a new situation.
One other thing I want to mention, some of you may be familiar with the Broadway play Dear Evan Hansen, which won all kinds of awards the year that it premiered, which is just a few years ago. And it very much deals with adolescent mental health concerns. Well, the kids at the high school level are quite familiar with that play. And so the music behind this PSA is a song from Dear Evan Hansen.
Have you ever felt like nobody was there? Have you ever felt forgotten in the middle of nowhere? Have you ever felt like you could disappear?
Like you could fall, no one would hear.
you'll be okay. 'Cause when you don't feel strong enough to stand, you can reach out your hand. And oh, someone will come running, and I know they'll take you home. Even when the dark comes crashing through, when you need a friend to carry you, when you're broken on the ground, you will be found.
Now, not kids in a media class, just trying to use their skills as best they could to deliver a message. So any thoughts about that?
Sarah, we couldn't hear you.
I just said like message received.
Uh-huh.
As we were watching that video, Debbie mentioned she's like, this is what I want. One of Debbie's ideas was to make our school more just inviting, approachable, positive. It's very sterile right now because it's so new.
Mm-hmm.
And there's not much on the walls. You don't walk in and see life in the building when you look at the building.
Mm-hmm.
Like
well, and to bring the kids together and give them a sense of ownership, being that, we were supposed to move into this building in the middle of last year, and that was so chaotic, and then everything that happened, and just to let these kids have some ownership, and how can you do that and help make a difference for other people. And I know even last year, a lot of people would see a lot of the teachers in our elementary building would see things like that on Pinterest, and we're all talking like, oh, I've got a Cricut, I can cut that out of vinyl and we can put that, and we have PTA parents that would do this and love to help paint this on the walls and put these messages on the stall doors in the bathroom or whatever. And as I'm looking at that, I think I still want to do that really badly. I want just positive vibes all over the place.
And to let the kids do as much of that as possible. It struck me when you said that before, to take ownership of the space. Early on when we were together, you all were talking about creating an outdoor learning space, but you're absolutely correct that you can influence the feeling and the messages that are conveyed in the indoor learning space. So that's a wonderful idea.
And I feel like too, over the last several years, we've had the seniors come back. When we were still over at Dunbar and to Monroe, they traveled from building to building at the end of the year to do their senior walk. And, oh, I remember these halls, and I remember this, and I remember this teacher and this classroom and what happened here. And for these kids that are starting in this building to have a handprint on this building, so that when they come back in their senior years, to be able to say, oh, hey, I remember when we did this, or remember when we worked on the project to create this part and to make this part of the building more beautiful, and just to kind of.
Or when they come back to teach.
Or when they come back to teach. I have a student who is now a 5th grade teacher or 4th teacher here. It was one of my first students. Now I feel old.
You might have just identified your entry event. If you got some high school kids who you could interview on video to talk about, or a recent graduate to talk about what they remembered when they went for their senior walk, to kind of have that context for the little kids, because they're not thinking about how I'm going to feel
when they come back
10 years from now.
Yeah, true.
Maybe the title of it is "What Will You Remember?" And there are people. I've never talked anybody into doing this yet in all the years we've done this, but I think schools could become almost children's museums.
Right.
You walk into COSI or you walk into a nature center, and not in the classrooms, but everywhere you go, you can learn something. There's things, and that can build life. And decorating, and keep the PTO out of it, because your kids, that's what they'll remember.
Yeah. Well, and we've got these big garage doors too, that all I kept thinking when they said, oh, garage doors, I'm like, oh, they're going to just be looking out into that open space and not able to focus on what we're talking about or doing. And then I thought, you know what? There's 12 panels in that garage door.
That's right.
They sell window paint. We could do something and learn something, and the kids could design a window pane and paint and what they've learned. And we can, use it as a learning board, use it as a way to help distract from anything that might be on the other side, distracting them or pulling their focus from what they need to be doing in the classroom, but also their artwork and their learning displayed.
Yeah. Anything from other folks in the group that we need to talk about? Okay, so I don't worry about those of you that are quieter because I know that you're just thinking deep thoughts. But if as you go deep in this way, you struggle with something, please give us a heads up so that we can connect. Otherwise, we will know that you're getting some slides ready. And I want to talk about these presentations just for 1 second so that you don't view them as more formal than we intend. We're asking you to identify those bullet points to help you focus your remarks a little bit. But the main thing that we want you to interact with each other about next week is what topic did you pick? Why did you pick it? And why are you excited about undertaking this? And those talking points should help give you the foundation to talk about this with some passion and excitement. But it's not like we're not sitting there with a grade book checking off each bullet point. It isn't that. It's to help you focus your ideas a little bit so that you can talk in a relaxed and excited way about what you're trying to do. Okay.
All right. You guys have been great tonight. This was fun. So
we hope you agree,
and we'll see you next week.
All right. Have a good one.